Today we're going to be taking a look at a very interesting style of graphic design. Drew and I went back for like 20 minutes just now trying to figure out what this is called. The best thing that we could come up with is Kitschy Nostalgia Y2K Retro Threshold Graphic Design, but we're going to call it Kitschy Nostalgia for short. Here are a couple references just to kind of get this design style and its essence into your mind. You're going to notice some similarities between these 6 designs, being this very cool threshold effect, which is basically just taking a picture or a drawing and kind of summing it down to either just black or white. There's no middle ground, there's no gray, it's just black or white. That is the threshold effect. I'm going to show you how to do that in this video. You'll also see some similarities in the typography that is used, as well as it being kind of just dual toned 2 color designs. So we're going to take a look at one that I already did, and then we're going to design another one together. So taking a look at my Kittl project here, I've already gone ahead and designed basically one of these kitschy nostalgia designs here. You can see that threshold effect in play here, as well as very nice classy fonts, very like kind of 70s, 80s nostalgia looking, maybe even into the 90s realm. I already know that I'm going to get like 17 comments of what fonts are those, so I've gone ahead and put them right here because I had already converted these to raster, which I probably should have made a duplicate, but I did not. So lesson number 1 of this video is make a duplicate of your project before you go into the effects portion of this video. Everything that you see on here was generated with AI. So I've got a nice gimlet cocktail right here, a disco ball, a nice looking watch, some playing cards, and some limes as well in here, and it all kind of just plays together, and the AI did a fantastic job. I just used DALL-E 3 and I used the detailed drawing preset because it gave me a very nice starting point to be able to then do the threshold effect on it. You're gonna want these generations that you start with to be like detailed and multicolor, so it can turn it into this kind of grungy, stipply effect looking type thing. Also right here, I'll show you how I did this shortly. Basically downloading and then re-importing and then, you know, vectorizing and then downloading and there's just a lot of stuff that I had to do to basically make that happen. Something that you may have noticed about those references in the beginning as well is that some of them are like kind of more textured, more ink bleedy. So I did another version of this right here that you can see if I zoom in, it's a little bit more like ink bled and tied together, where this is more, you know, intricate and very sketchy. So, you know, one may be your taste. You may like this better than this. I think that this is probably a little bit more my style. It looks like this was designed and then it was like an ink stamp that was stamped onto the page. And to achieve that ink stamp effect, I did a video, which I'll link right here. You can go check that out. Definitely a super helpful effect, but I'm also going to do it in the second design that we do in this video as well. But yeah, let's get into a little bit more designing together. I'm going to just copy over this artboard and get rid of this, and we'll start from scratch. I'll make my background color white here. I am going to kind of just copy this text over. Something to note about this font, if you're wanting it to have this vibe, it only works if the kerning is very tight. You're gonna want all of those letters to be squished together. I mean, this is -100, so they're definitely very squished together. That's what gives it that nostalgic feel. I'm gonna do a different cocktail. I think I'll do probably like a Paloma. So that one word is not big enough to span the space of this, so I'll do classic Paloma like I did with classic Gimlet. Obviously Gimlet is not long enough to span right there. It's already looking kind of like a 80s car ad, you know, just this right here. Make this selection like an off yellow color and then boom, or like the Apple thing, and then it's just the computer right there. So sick. That's how much weight that typography carries on the team when it comes to designing, is it could literally just be one line of text and an object, and it's a sick design because you use the right font and it looks very good. So I've gone ahead and AI generated a Paloma cocktail right here. For reference, I just used the same settings, DALL-E 3, Paloma cocktail in a rocks glass with a grapefruit slice because apparently it comes with a grapefruit garnish. I didn't even know what this cocktail was before filming this. And then I used the detail drawing clip art style. I can show you, I believe, what it looked like right here before I vectorized it. And so to do that, I just have this image selected, vectorize one color, and it will give you that threshold effect. So it's not necessarily like a threshold button or a threshold effect. You know, summing it down to one color, it's basically gonna like split the spectrum of like colors and light in the photo into just 1 or 0, and then it's gonna take everything that's darker. So we've got our nice cocktail here. Let's try to start getting some sort of layout going. This is a very nice layout, so I might draw inspiration from how this is laid out right here. We can do cocktail on we could even do it in the center. The first thing that I want to tackle is something like this right here, which I did. And the way that I did that was I used the shape builder tool. I just clicked O on the keyboard and then drew a nice little oval. Then I'm going to change the color to white, add a border, maybe thicken that up just a little bit. And then I added a shadow and turned the blur all the way down so it creates kind of like this all the way filled in shadow effect. Nice. I may make that a little bit wider, and I'd probably put it somewhere like right here. So I'm actually going to download this as a PNG. I'll just do a very large size, and then I'm going to re-import it back into the project. This is very, very important for here in a couple minutes. Size it up, and we can get rid of that one right there. So the reason that I did that is so I can click vectorize and vectorize it as one color. It's going to get rid of the white, but now I can come in here and hit E on the keyboard to rasterize the cocktail and then erase the portions of this drink that are inside that circle. And so now, let's say I put this on a shirt or something. If I change the color of the background, it's also, you know, punched all the way through. And so if I kept that as white, it would look great while the background was white, but as soon as I changed it to anything else, you would just have a white fill to that shape. So let's get some typography going in here. I love Kittl script for this phase of my life, I guess. This is also what I used right here. And so let's just type something like fresh. I think I also did a little bit of a transform here, put it on an angle, as well as added a stroke around here. If you go to the text shading panel, the third option, I just want to beef this text up just a little bit because I'll show you the difference here. So as of right now, it looks like it's part of the design. If I go right here, is if I take that text shading off, it's just very thin and dainty and wispy and doesn't like contribute to the design. And right now, actually, to my eyes, this is distracting and retracts from the overall design value. But if I add that stroke back in, it actually feels like I could even add maybe a little bit more onto this. It feels like part of the design. All of the different actions that I take, any of the effects, are to make it feel more baked together and make it feel like a design, not just a picture with some random wispy text thrown on it. You want it to actually feel baked together. So I might go ahead and group these things together. I might put it off to the left because I know I want to do this little sign type deal with the ingredients. So similar thing here, I'm going to draw a rectangle. I'll just pull it off the screen there. And then I didn't originally know that you could do this, but if you hold shift, you can actually skew shape layers like this. So I'm gonna do that up at a slight angle like I did on this other one right here. Change the fill color to white, add that border in, and then add a similar shadow effect. Turn that blur all the way down, adjust the offset and the angle, and boom. So same deal here. I'm going to download this as a PNG, drag it back in, and vectorize this as one color to get rid of that white fill. And now I have a nice little billboard here to work with. Now it's just time to find a good place to position it. Thinking ahead, I think it would be cool to include some flowers and stuff in here behind using that same AI art style, because this does have like grapefruit and tequila and agave, so it's got kind of like a little bit of a tropical feel to it. The other way that you could figure out if you liked the positioning of this is to not download it, re-import it, and vectorize it until you've actually positioned it, which I have failed to do. But I could just do it again by drawing this, skewing it, fill color, border, shadow. Now I can actually see what it would look like if it was placed there. So now into the ingredients list, and I'll go back and I'll vectorize and rasterize and erase and whatever that in a minute later. Now onto the ingredients list. I will do Nuhas Grotesque for this once again. You don't have to use these fonts. They just look really, really good together, so that's why I'm doing it. I'm just copying and pasting in some generic ingredients for this cocktail. And let's size this down. I remember what I did over here is I actually did this line by line so that I could use a text transformation. So let's do that. I can use a transformation. I'll bring that over here. You want to make sure that that kind of matches the same angle so that the line of the bottom of the text and then the line of this billboard are parallel to each other. If it didn't, it would just look off. Now we want to option drag down to duplicate that, and we can do 2 ounces grapefruit. We'll drag that down again. 1/2 ounce lime. Say lime juice, just to make that line a little bit longer, because that's a little bit more appealing, the line being kind of longer. 1/2 ounce agave. Let's see what this looks like. That doesn't look bad. It's a little long. I like just sparkling water because it doesn't look like an eyesore being so long there at the bottom. I can tidy these lines by selecting all of them and hitting the tidy function under the alignment tools, and so now they're all very evenly spaced from each other, and I can find a good place to position this with inside this sign. Now, another thing that I like to do with this text, very similarly to the fresh right over here, is add that same stroke to it. I'm gonna add the text shading right here, add a little bit of an outline. I think 2 looks good. And then what you can actually do is copy this layer style. I can go under here, copy style, and then select all 4 of the other ones, paste style, boom. And you don't have to do it individually to every single layer. That's a little bit newer of a feature, which I probably should have included in the Kittl hacks, but I did not. Maybe Drew did. I think that these actually need to come down a touch. So I'll select all of these, and that looks good. It's actually looking pretty sick. Now let's try some flowers. I'm gonna go to the AI panel again, and I'm just gonna say tropical flowers with grapefruit and agave, and the detailed drawing, and we're just gonna see what it gives us. This is the experimentation time of the design process. I can go ahead and get rid of that. That's actually pretty sick. So I'm gonna take this. You can just go ahead and vectorize it, but I'm gonna see what happens if I remove the background first. Very nice. And then we're gonna vectorize this. You know the deal, 1 color. Very cool. So if I scale this up, kind of put it at an angle here and send it to the back. And we're gonna need to do some deleting of some stuff here, but that's okay. What I'm doing right now is just trying to position it to where there's no awkward cuts or gaps, specifically over here. Like, I don't like if I position it right here, how there's like a tiny little cut right there. So I might put it right there. Now, what I'm gonna do is change the color so I can see it a little bit better. And I'm gonna go in and erase any part of this that is tripping over my initial design. Let's see, so right here, you do erase all of that. And we should probably go ahead and erase inside this sign. I'm gonna erase that right here. And we should probably go ahead and erase inside of this sign as well, because the background of that sign is going to be removed here soon. So if we didn't, then it would just shine through and we would need to erase it anyway. So I'm gonna do it right now. Now that I've got all that corner done, I can just increase the size of my eraser here. using the bracket keys and erase this a lot faster. Yo, that kind of looks fire. Why does that look kind of dope? Having this like obscure the text. Redacted. I think that this color red and black and white together just goes really, really well. And so everything looks just very cool. So that'll get covered up by my initial illustration here. So I really just need to focus on this stuff. And now, once you get right here, you kind of need to make a decision, which is the edge of it is not being obscured by this grapefruit slice. And so I can either have it like kind of cut through and maybe look like it's very awkwardly cut off, or I can just get rid of it completely. And I would probably opt to get rid of it completely. Same with this over here, I'm just gonna get rid of that. These are fine because it has a solid edge that it's poking out from. And then all of this can go. This is all going away. Now, done with that, actually position it a little bit differently there, which means I need to re-erase some of this stuff. And I'm gonna get rid of some of these weird pieces. Now, what I can do is re-vectorize this so that the color goes back to black. I'm gonna select all of this and kind of just reposition it. I love how this part of the plant comes down and fills in this gap where it comes over the L. That's pretty nice. I'm gonna resize this just a little bit because I feel like it needs to be a little bit bigger to fill that space. So now, as a result, I'm going to have to erase a little bit more of this. And that's actually looking pretty nice. I don't even know if I need to do anything else for that. Could stop right here. You could add some more text at the top, you know, maybe a little script. Probably get that with some regular letter spacing. Just do some random text like happy hour. And this is another prime example of me adding the stroke around the text, and why is because that text at the moment does not look like part of the design. It just looks like text slapped onto an existing design. But if I do this, it actually looks a little bit more tied together. I don't know if I super love that, but we'll come back to it. With this, let's go ahead and re-import this. Go ahead and vectorize this as one color. And we'll size this frame up here. Position that where it needs to go. And then we can get rid of that. And it looks like we also need to erase some of this cocktail as well that I forgot about. So there you go. Easy peasy. You could even do something with Nuhas Grotesque up here. Maybe that's like the name of a bar, I don't know. So you could do some nice text up here if you wanted to. You could even flip these to where this text was down at the bottom. And this text was like this. That looks pretty sick. Yeah, I like that. I think that looks good. It's missing a little something, but I don't know what it is. So I'm gonna leave that up to you guys to comment what this is missing. Maybe size that like that. So getting into that more ink bleedy grunge effect, I actually just realized mid-recording that there's an easier way to do this, which is to just download the entire artboard as a PNG. So we're gonna go PNG, remove background, and export. And then we can re-import that, and boom, we've got our nice design here. I'm going to copy my artboard here and just get rid of all of that, and then drag this back on. Center it up. The first thing I'm gonna do to this is add a photo filter and just blur it slightly, like just 1%, just barely blur it. And then I'm gonna go to images. I also detailed this in that video I referenced earlier, and I'm gonna type in texture. You can do this with any texture. I just found one that really works well, which is this one. And I'm gonna size this up to fill the artboard. And then I'm going to change the blending mode to color burn. And so you can already see that this has affected pretty harshly what's going on here on the canvas. I can also take away the blur of this, and you can see how it's just kind of beefing up the edges of what's going on there. I don't know the computer science behind the way that this works, but essentially it's just taking all the soft blurred edges of the PNG, because when you convert it to PNG, at the very edges of the text or the illustration or whatever, it's not just like black pixel and then nothing. Like it's gonna taper off and be like black and then gray and then a little bit more translucent and then white. So it's just basically doing another threshold on top of that and summing it all to black. So now what I can do is download this whole thing. I'll just make it nice and big, and we can size that up and vectorize this. Cool, I can give it an artboard. I'll just delete this, delete that, and drag this on. Also, what we can do is add a texture to this as well. So I can go to textures, and let's pick a nice grunge texture. Maybe something like this, and then we'll change it to an alpha mask and then mask the texture to the design, and it's gonna give a nice cut through. I like that. Very, very nice. So here's our two different options right here. You could also add the same texture to this one if you wanted, but this one is just nice and clean. We've got all our details in here, and then we've got the little bit more like ink bled, ink stampy looking kind of design. And like I mentioned before, it's completely transparent, so we can go in here and change it to any color we want. That is very sick. If that was outside of a bar, I would 100% go into it and I would order that drink. Well, that is all for today's Kittl video. I hope that this has been extremely helpful. Drop a comment down below and let us know. Also, go try out this ink stamp effect for yourself. I know it's a lot of exporting, re-importing, rasterize, vectorize, but you would do that in any other design program anyway. Believe me, I speak from experience. While you're leaving a comment, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the Kittl YouTube channel so that you make sure that you don't, miss any awesome feature updates, design styles, or Kittl tutorials and hacks. Again, thank you so much for watching this video, and we'll see you in the next one.